In Jira, we have a very special configuration called workflow properties, which let you control how issues behave as they move through different statuses. They help you set rules like who can edit the issue, which fields are required, or who has permission to transition the issue from one status to the other. Now, there are two types of workflow properties. The first one is transition properties, and the second one is status properties. The transition properties are properties that control what happens when an issue moves from one status to the other. And then status properties are those properties that control what happens while an issue is on a specific status. So in this tutorial, we're going to see one example of each. Let's start with transition properties. Now, for this web development workflow, what we're going to do is restrict the transition from ready for testing to end testing. Because in theory, not every user inside Jira should be able to transition this issue. Specifically, only users who belong to the group QA testers should be able to transition the issue from ready for testing to end testing. So that's exactly what we're going to implement. Now, I went ahead and created a group called QA testers. So I'm going to go to user management. This is just to show you guys. You don't have to do this part. And I created a group called QA testers, where I included a member, which I'm not part of, Chris Diaz. Okay. So if we go back to our workflow, what we're going to do is select the transition. We're going to click on properties. And the only thing that we have to do here is type in the following: Jira permission transition. And because this is a key value pair, we have to give it a value, QA testers. Now, there's a whole list of transition properties, which you can find online. I'm not going to walk through each one of them, but this is one of the most common ones, okay? So all we're going to do is click on the add button, and we're going to go back. And when I publish this draft, this 0 is going to change to 1. Now, we're going to go ahead and create one for status properties, okay? And a good example for that is, well, when an issue transitions from deployed to production to done, nobody should be able to edit that issue, okay? So what we're going to do is click on the status, not on the transition, and we're going to click on properties. Now we're going to type in jira.issue.editable and then the property value equal to false. And I'm going to add this. And I'm going to go back to my workflow and I'm going to publish this workflow. Again, if you don't publish this workflow, you're not going to see the changes. Okay? So make sure you publish the workflow. You don't have to say backup if you don't want to. And I'm going to go to my project, and I'm just going to click on a random, let's say an epic, and then a task inside of it. Let's say this one. So now we can test both our transition property and our status property. Now, let's recall, in our workflow, we have this restricted from ready for testing to end testing to only users of that team QA testers. Now, and I'm just going to give you guys a heads up. If I transition to in progress, then ready for testing, and then right here is where I should be restricted. Now, because I'm an administrator, I can bypass that permission. But in reality, if I were just a regular Jira user, it would throw an error. It would say you don't have the required permissions or you're not part of the QA team. Now, I'm going to go ahead and transition this just to show you guys the status property. So if I click on ready for deployment, then deploy to production. Now remember, our status property is in the status of done, meaning that once I change it to the done status, I should not be able to edit anything within the issue. So let's give that a try. I can change, let's say, priority from medium to highest, highest to lowest, and then let's just set it to lowest, okay? Now, if I change this to done, and give it a second, I'm not allowed to change the priority anymore. And that's the whole idea behind status properties.